My brother pushed me out of my wheelchair at our family reunion. "Stop faking for attention," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Everyone laughed as I lay on the ground. What they didn't know was that my doctor was standing right behind them. He cleared his throat and said 5 words that ended everything. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The sky was warm and bright when we pulled into the old family farmhouse, the place where most of my childhood memories lived, both the ones that held me together and the ones I tried hard to forget. My wheelchair bumped slightly as I rolled over the uneven gravel, the familiar crunch stirring a strange mix of nostalgia and dread inside me. I knew this reunion would be difficult. Every family gathering was. But after my recent diagnosis, after the long months of weakness and fatigue, I had hoped things might finally be different. I hoped my family would finally understand that my struggle wasn't imaginary. Aunt Clara spotted me first. She jogged over with her usual forced enthusiasm, her smile too wide to be genuine. "Sweetheart, you made it," she exclaimed, patting my shoulder as if I were a fragile ceramic doll. Her eyes flicked momentarily to my wheelchair, then back up to my face, pretending the glance meant nothing. I gave her a small smile anyway. It was easier to play along. Children ran across the yard, chasing each other with plastic water guns. The grill smoked in the distance. A table full of relatives I hadn't seen in a year lined the porch, all wearing the same polite but curious expressions as they watched me arrive. Some waved warmly. Others whispered under their breath, their eyes lingering on the chair. My heart tightened, but I kept moving forward. Then, my brother stepped out from behind the porch column. Liam, the one person I had always hoped would defend me, believe me, stand with me. Instead, he crossed his arms and shook his head like he'd been waiting to be disappointed. "So you really brought that thing," he muttered, nodding at the chair. Unbelievable. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "I didn't bring it for attention," I said quietly. "I brought it because I need it." He scoffed loudly, loud enough that half the porch could hear. "Sure you do, right." A few of our cousins exchanged awkward glances, then looked away quickly, pretending they hadn't heard anything. My stomach twisted. I could handle strangers judging me. But my own brother? That was the kind of wound that went deeper than any physical pain. Still, I rolled forward, determined not to let his hostility ruin the day. I wanted to enjoy at least a little of the reunion. I wanted to feel included, even if just for a moment. But deep down, I felt the tension building. Something told me this day wasn't going to end the way I hoped. Something told me the worst was still coming. Liam didn't even try to hide the irritation on his face as I wheeled toward the porch. He let out a sigh so dramatic it pulled the attention of everyone within earshot. "I swear," he muttered loudly, "every time there's a family event, she finds a way to make it about her." A few relatives pretended to straighten tablecloths or adjust plates, avoiding eye contact. Others offered tight-lipped smiles, the kind people wear when they want to look supportive without getting involved. My chest tightened. I had rehearsed what to say if anyone questioned me, but when the moment actually came, my words felt trapped behind fear and exhaustion. I parked near the shade tree, hoping the conversation would fade, but Liam followed me, shaking his head like he was a disappointed teacher dealing with a misbehaving child. "You know," he said louder, "if you stopped spending so much time feeling sorry for yourself, maybe your legs would magically start working again." I looked down at my hands resting in my lap. "It's not about feeling sorry for myself," I replied softly. "The doctor said—" "Oh, the doctor said," he mocked in a sing-song tone. "Of course he did. Doctors will say anything if you cry enough." My jaw clenched. "Why would I lie?" I whispered. He shrugged. "For sympathy. For attention. You always loved being the fragile one. Mom used to give you extra ice cream when you looked sad. Guess you got addicted to pity." The words hit me harder than I expected. Not because they were true, they weren't, But because a part of me had always hoped Liam still saw me as his little sister, the one he carried on his back during hikes, the one he defended from bullies, that brother felt like a stranger now. A group of cousins gathered near the drinks table, pretending not to listen, though their sideways glances made it obvious. I forced a smile at them, but it faltered quickly when Liam laughed under his breath. "You could walk if you really wanted to," he continued. "You just don't try. Wheelchair makes things easier, doesn't it?" My throat tightened. "Easier?" I repeated. "You think this is easy?" He shrugged again, utterly unmoved. I wanted to stand up, not physically, but emotionally, and tell him everything I'd been holding inside. The sleepless nights, the fear, the weakness, the doctor's warnings, the pain I hid so no one would worry. But before I could speak, someone called for a family photo. People hurried over, smiling and laughing, pretending nothing was wrong. Liam leaned close, his voice cold. "Try not to make a scene," he whispered, as if I ever wanted to. Everyone gathered near the big oak tree for the family photo, smiling as if this reunion were a perfect picture from an old album. The sun glowed warm across the yard, casting soft shadows on the grass, but inside my chest, a cold heaviness settled. I wheeled myself toward the group, trying to blend in, trying not to be the problem Liam believed I was. But as soon as I reached the edge of the crowd, I heard him behind me again, his voice dripping with condescension. "Come on, slow down," he said loudly. "We don't have all day. Some of us can actually stand." A few relatives let out awkward chuckles, unsure whether to laugh or stay silent. My stomach fluttered painfully. I positioned myself at the front corner of the group, thinking I'd be out of the way there. But Liam wasn't satisfied with that. He stepped behind me, hands on his hips, shaking his head in exaggerated disappointment for everyone to see. "Honestly," he said, "I don't know why you're even using this chair. You walked fine last Christmas." "That was before the diagnosis," I murmured, keeping my eyes fixed on the ground. "Oh, right, the mysterious diagnosis," he replied, rolling his eyes. "Convenient timing." My heart thudded painfully. I felt the heat rising in my cheeks again, my breath growing shallow. I tried to focus on Aunt Clara calling out names, arranging people by height, getting children to stop wiggling. For a moment, it seemed like the tension might pass, but Liam wasn't finished. He leaned closer, his voice sharp enough to cut. "Stop faking for attention." Something inside me cracked. I turned slightly, prepared to defend myself, but before a word could leave my lips, he acted. In one quick, careless movement, he shoved the handles of my wheelchair forward. My world tilted. The wheels lifted off the uneven ground, and I felt the chair slip away from beneath me. Time slowed as I toppled sideways, helpless to stop the fall. The grass rushed toward me, the breath leaving my lungs in a sharp gasp as my body hit the ground. For a heartbeat, everything was silent. Then, laughter. It echoed from behind me, from cousins, from uncles, from people who should have helped instead of entertained themselves. The sound stung worse than the impact of the fall. Tears pricked my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not yet. I tried to push myself up, my arms trembling with weakness, but the pain in my legs pulsed sharply, leaving me breathless. The chair lay on its side a few feet away. Liam stood above me, shaking his head with a smirk. "See?" he said loudly. "Drama. Every time." His words sliced deeper than the gravel digging into my skin. I felt small, exposed, humiliated, and as the laughter swelled, I realized something chilling. No one was coming to help me. Not yet. For a moment, as I lay on the grass staring at the sky through a blur of tears, I wondered if maybe the world would stop spinning long enough for someone, anyone, to realize what had really happened. But the sound that reached me wasn't concern. It wasn't shock. It wasn't footsteps rushing toward me. It was laughter. Harsh, sharp, echoing across the yard like a cruel chorus. A few cousins clapped their hands over their mouths as if trying to hide their amusement, but their shoulders shook with suppressed giggles. One uncle muttered, "Kids these days and their drama," shaking his head as though I were a toddler pretending to fall for attention. Another relative called out, "Come on, sweetheart, it's just grass, you're fine," in that tone adults use when dismissing a child's scraped knee. My heart pounded painfully. I tried again to push myself upright, but my arms trembled under the weight. The fall had jarred my already weak muscles, leaving my legs numb and tingling. I gritted my teeth, fighting the rising panic, fighting the humiliation gripping my chest like a fist. Liam stood over me, arms crossed, eyes narrowed in fake frustration. "See?" he announced loudly, gesturing toward my shaking arms. "She falls because she wants people to look. It's embarrassing." Embarrassing. That word sank into me like a blade. Not my pain, not my diagnosis, not the months of fatigue, tests, and slow decline. No, me. I was embarrassing. Aunt Clara stepped forward, but not toward me. She placed a hand gently on Liam's arm and whispered, "Maybe don't make a scene, darling. People are watching." Her eyes flicked toward me briefly, pitying but distant, as if she didn't know what to do with someone broken. I swallowed hard, blinking away the tears. I didn't want their pity. I didn't even want their help anymore. I just wanted to stand up, figuratively, if not physically, and stop being the family joke. But as I forced my hand against the ground again, a sharp pain shot up my leg, stealing my breath. I gasped softly. No one seemed to hear. "Can someone help me?" I whispered, the words barely escaping. No one moved. A cousin pulled out his phone, whispering, "Should we?" before another nudged him, laughing, "Don't. She'll say we're bullying her." My face flushed so hot it burned. The grass beneath me felt cold and unforgiving. The world above me, the family I'd grown up loving, felt even colder. I heard footsteps approaching and prayed for compassion, for a hand reaching down, for someone willing to see past the wheelchair, past the fall, past the lies Liam had woven around me. But instead, Liam leaned closer, voice low but venomous. "You're embarrassing the family. Stay down if you're going to pretend." My breath hitched. The humiliation was complete. What none of them knew, what none of them could possibly guess, was that someone else had been watching everything, and he wasn't laughing. The laughter was still echoing when a shadow stretched across the grass toward me, steady, unmoving, completely unlike the shifting figures around me who pretended not to see my struggle. I blinked, trying to clear my vision, and when I finally looked up, my breath caught in my throat. Dr. Harris, my neurologist, the one person who knew the truth behind my symptoms, the one person who had seen my decline, documented every tremor, every weakness, every painful step that had slowly turned into no steps at all. I hadn't known he was invited. I certainly hadn't expected him to be here, but there he was, tall, calm, and silent, his eyes not filled with pity, but with something far more unsettling, disappointment, not in me, but in the people around me. "Are you all right?" he asked softly, but loud enough for the nearby relatives to hear. His voice cut through the laughter like a razor. The yard fell quiet. I tried to answer, but emotion clogged my throat. I swallowed and whispered, My chair tipped." Before I could reach for the wheelchair, Dr. Harris knelt beside me, one hand bracing my shoulder gently to prevent me from straining. "Don't move too quickly," he warned. "Falls can be dangerous in your condition." Your condition. Two simple words that made half the family freeze. Liam scoffed behind him, but the doctor didn't even look his way. His attention was fully on me as he helped me sit upright, lifting the chair with one smooth motion and setting it beside me. "Let's get you back in," he said. My hands trembled as I gripped the armrests. Dr. Harris guided me carefully, making sure my legs weren't twisted awkwardly. The crowd parted slightly, their silence thick with confusion and guilt. Aunt Clara forced a laugh. "Oh, doctor, she just slipped. Kids fall all the time." "She didn't slip," Dr. Harris said flatly. "I saw what happened." A heavy hush fell over the yard. Liam stiffened. "So what? She's fine. She always acts like she's dying." The doctor finally turned his head then, slowly, deliberately. His expression was calm, too calm. "You pushed her," he said, "and considering her diagnosis, that was extremely reckless." Liam's smirk faltered. The relatives who had laughed earlier shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between the doctor and me. The warmth of the reunion evaporated, replaced with a chilling stillness. Dr. Harris placed a reassuring hand on my arm. "You shouldn't have to defend your illness." Then he stood, facing the family like a quiet storm gathering strength. "I think it's time," he said, voice steady, "that everyone here learns the truth." Dr. Harris let the silence stretch, letting every shifting foot, every nervous swallow, every darting eye settle into place. The family stood frozen around us, their earlier laughter disappearing as quickly as it had risen. Even the children sensed the tension and drifted away toward the swings, leaving only adults staring at the doctor with uneasy curiosity. Liam tried to recover his confidence, clearing his throat loudly. "Look, doctor, with all due respect, this is a family moment. We don't need a lecture. She's fine." But Dr. Harris didn't even blink. He studied my brother the way a surgeon studies an X-ray, quietly, precisely, without any room for excuses. Then, in a calm voice that somehow carried across the entire yard, he said the 5 words that shattered everything. "She can barely stand anymore." Gasps rippled through the family like a shockwave. Aunt Clara covered her mouth. Uncle Ray whispered, "What?" My mother dropped the napkins she'd been carrying, her face draining of color. For the first time all afternoon, Liam's expression faltered, just slightly. His eyebrows twitched, confusion flickering across his face. "What do you mean? She stood last month when we—" "She tried," Dr. Harris corrected firmly. "Her muscles gave out within seconds. She nearly collapsed. I told her then that a wheelchair wasn't optional anymore." The truth hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. My throat tightened as memories flashed sharply. Falling in my kitchen, struggling to climb stairs, the embarrassment of leaning against walls for balance, the tremor in my legs that I'd prayed no one would notice. I had hidden so much. Too much. But Dr. Harris wasn't hiding anything today. He looked around the circle of stunned faces. "She has a progressive neuromuscular disorder. Her legs are losing strength rapidly. Pushing her, startling her, or dismissing her symptoms isn't just cruel, it's dangerous." A murmur of guilt spread through the relatives, who had laughed earlier. Some looked down at their shoes. Others wiped tears they had pretended they'd never shed. Liam opened his mouth, but no words came out. His face had gone pale, his bravado cracking under the weight of what he'd just heard. Dr. Harris stepped closer to him, not aggressively, but with the full authority of someone who had watched a patient suffer in silence. "You think she's faking? You think she wants attention?" His voice softened, but the softness was sharper than any anger. "She would give anything, to walk across this yard the way you do, but she can't." My eyes burned, because finally, someone had said it out loud. And for the first time all day, the entire family understood. This wasn't drama. This wasn't attention-seeking. This wasn't a performance. This was my reality. The yard felt impossibly still. Even the breeze seemed to hesitate, as if the world itself paused to hear what Dr. Harris would say next. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, some filled with guilt, others with shock. A few with the kind of dawning horror people experience when they realize they've been wrong for far too long. Dr. Harris rested a hand lightly on the back of my wheelchair before turning to face the family. For months, he began, his tone firm but compassionate, she's been experiencing muscle deterioration, fatigue, instability, and severe weakness. Every test we ran pointed to the same conclusion. He paused, letting the weight settle. She's dealing with a neuromuscular condition that progressively limits mobility. A soft cry escaped from somewhere behind my mother. My aunt whispered, "Oh my God," as if she'd just watched someone collapse. But no sound cut deeper than the one that came from Liam, a tiny involuntary exhale of disbelief. It wasn't loud, but in the silence, it echoed like thunder. Dr. Harris continued. Her legs give out without warning. Her muscles tire far faster than yours. Even standing for a few seconds can trigger spasms or collapse. His eyes swept across the crowd. The wheelchair isn't an exaggeration. It's not a choice. It's a medical necessity. My heart thumped against my ribs. I wanted to shrink into the chair. I wanted to disappear. But another part of me, the part that had been crushed under judgment and accusations, finally felt seen. He reached into his bag and pulled out a thin folder. These are her test results: MRIs, strength evaluations, neurological assessments. They show clear evidence of degeneration. He didn't hand them to anyone. He didn't need to. The truth was already out. My mother wiped her eyes, stepping closer. "Why didn't she tell us how bad it was?" she whispered. I swallowed hard. "I did," I said softly. "You just didn't believe me." The words stung even as I said them. Months of frustration bled through every syllable, mixing with pain I'd been carrying alone. Dr. Harris nodded gently. "She's been minimizing her symptoms to avoid worrying all of you. And," he added pointedly, "because she feared reactions like the one she experienced today." Liam winced. The doctor crouched slightly so he was level with me. "You've been incredibly strong," he said, "more than most people ever have to be, but you shouldn't have to prove your illness to anyone." He stood again, turning toward my brother. "And pushing her, physically pushing her, could have caused a severe injury. A fall like that can damage already weakened muscles or even lead to fractures." Liam's face crumpled, guilt settling over him like a heavy cloak he couldn't remove. The truth was out now, raw, unavoidable, exposed under the bright sun for everyone to face, and for the first time they finally understood that my struggle wasn't a performance, it was a battle. Every single day. A heavy silence draped over the yard, settling into every corner like a fog no one knew how to walk through. Moments ago, this place had been filled with laughter, bright, careless, loud. Now that same laughter felt poisonous, echoing in the memories of everyone who had joined in. Faces that once wore amusement now showed something far more uncomfortable: guilt. My mother stepped toward me first, her hands trembling at her sides. "Sweetheart," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Why didn't you tell me it was this bad?" But there was no accusation in her tone anymore, only regret, thick and suffocating. "I tried," I murmured, "more than once." Her eyes filled instantly with tears. She covered her mouth, as if trying to hold back the sobs building inside her. She wasn't the only one. Uncles who had laughed earlier stared at the ground, unable to meet my gaze. Cousins shifted uncomfortably, their arms wrapped across their chests in a feeble attempt to hide their shame. Aunt Clara dabbed her eyes with a napkin. "I didn't know," she said softly. "I thought maybe you were exaggerating a little. I'm so sorry. I never meant to." "I know," I said gently, though my voice wavered. "You just didn't understand." But their misunderstanding had cost me more than bruises. It had cost me dignity, trust, safety, the right to be believed in my own family. Then all eyes shifted to Liam. He stood frozen, shoulders rigid, face pale. The bravado that had fueled him all morning had evaporated, leaving behind a hollow expression I'd never seen on him before. His jaw trembled ever so slightly as he struggled to find words. I didn't, he began, but his voice faltered. He cleared his throat, trying again. I didn't know it was real. Dr. Harris crossed his arms, choosing not to soften his tone. People with invisible illnesses are often dismissed. That doesn't make the illness any less real. Liam swallowed hard, staring at me as if seeing me for the first time in years. The guilt in his eyes was unmistakable, raw, painful, consuming. His chest rose and fell quickly, breaths shallow. I'm sorry, he said, barely audible. But apologies felt too fragile in that moment, too easy, too late. The weight of what he'd done, the shove, the humiliation, the disbelief, hung in the air between us like a storm cloud waiting to break. The family stood in a wide, silent circle, guilt tying them together in a way laughter never had. And though their regret was real, something inside me whispered that the damage ran deeper than any of them realized, and it wasn't done yet. The moment Liam whispered that fragile apology, something inside me splintered, not because his words hurt, but because for the first time I felt the crushing weight of everything I'd been carrying alone. Months of trembling muscles, sleepless nights, collapsing against counters, hiding tears in bathroom stalls. All of it rose to the surface like a wave, determined to swallow me whole. I tried to steady my breathing, but the air wouldn't come. It sat heavy in my chest, trapped behind the lump forming in my throat. My hands trembled uncontrollably on the armrests of my wheelchair, and no matter how hard I tried to blink them back, tears spilled over the edges of my eyes. Dr. Harris knelt beside me again, his voice low and steady. It's okay, he murmured. You don't have to hold it in anymore. But I'd spent so long pretending to be strong, for my family, for myself, that letting go felt terrifying. My mother crouched beside me too, reaching out with shaking hands. Sweetheart, she whispered, please look at me. But I couldn't. If I looked at her, the dam inside me would shatter completely. I could already feel the cracks spreading. And then it happened. I broke. A sob ripped through me, raw, unfiltered, painful. It echoed louder than any laughter that had humiliated me earlier. My entire body shook as months of hurt, fear, frustration, and loneliness poured out in uncontrollable waves. I buried my face in my hands, unable to stop the grief from spilling into every tremor of my voice. I didn't want this, I cried. I didn't want any of this. My mother wrapped her arms around me, her tears dripping into my hair. I know, she said softly. I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have believed you. Aunt Clara stepped closer, her voice trembling. We all should have. But their remorse couldn't erase the nights I'd cried alone, or the mornings I'd struggled to stand before collapsing back into bed. It couldn't undo the way Liam had shoved me or the laughter that followed. Their regret was real, but so was my pain. Liam moved toward me slowly, as if approaching a fragile creature he wasn't sure he had the right to touch. His face was twisted with guilt and something else. Fear. Not fear of the illness, but fear of the damage he had caused. I didn't know, he whispered. I swear I didn't. I thought you were exaggerating. His voice broke. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. I lifted my head, tears blurring everything. I needed you, I said quietly. Out of everyone. I needed you. He flinched as if I'd struck him. Dr. Harris gently placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. Let it out, he said. You've been strong for too long. The breakdown wasn't pretty. It wasn't quiet. It wasn't graceful. But it was real. And for the first time, everyone finally saw me, not as the girl seeking attention, but as someone who had been fighting a silent war completely alone. Liam stood there as if rooted to the ground, his chest rising and falling with rapid breaths. He looked nothing like the confident brother who had shoved my wheelchair minutes earlier. His swagger was gone. His smirk had vanished. What remained was a man staring at the consequences of his cruelty. Consequences he had never imagined would be real. Dr. Harris rose slowly from beside me, turning his calm, unwavering gaze toward Liam. "You need to understand something," he said, his tone firm, but controlled. "This isn't childish behavior you can shrug off. What you did could have seriously injured her." Liam swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to hurt her," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You did," the doctor replied flatly, "whether you meant it or not." My brother's eyes darted between me and the doctor, searching for an escape from the truth tightening around him like a vice. His jaw clenched, his fingers fidgeted nervously against his jeans. The guilt was eating him alive, yet beneath it, I sensed something deeper, something raw and tangled. Fear of being wrong, fear of being the villain, fear of facing the mirror the doctor was holding up. "I thought she was exaggerating," Liam said, louder now. "She used to run around with us. She was strong. She never complained. Then suddenly," he gestured helplessly toward my wheelchair. That's how progressive conditions work," Dr. Harris replied sharply. "They don't wait for your understanding. They don't unfold on your schedule." Liam flinched, the words hitting him squarely. My mother stepped in, her face streaked with tears. "Liam, she needed us, all of us, and we failed her, especially you." He shook his head, pacing a few steps before stopping again. "I didn't know," he repeated, as if that excuse could rewind time. "She didn't tell me it was this serious." I lifted my gaze, my voice barely above a whisper. "I did. You didn't want to hear it." His shoulders sagged as if my words had knocked the wind out of him. He turned back to Dr. Harris, desperation clouding his eyes. "What do I do? How do I fix this?" The doctor stepped closer, close enough that Liam couldn't look away. "Start by accepting her reality. Stop questioning her pain. Stop assuming you know her limits better than she does." Liam nodded slowly, his throat working as he fought back emotion. "And," Dr. Harris added, tone sharpening, "never lay a hand on her wheelchair again, not to push her, not to mock her, not to make a point. Ever." My brother blinked rapidly, tears gathering in the corners of his eyes. "I won't," he whispered. "I swear." For the first time all day, he looked small, not weak, just human. A boy who had grown up believing strength meant denying vulnerability, only to realize too late that true strength came from understanding it. He took one hesitant step toward me. "I was wrong," he said quietly, "about everything." And for the first time since the reunion began, I believed him. The wheelchair sat a few feet away, tilted slightly from where Dr. Harris had set it upright earlier. Its metal frame glinted in the sunlight, a painfully clear reminder of the moment everything snapped. For years, I'd resented needing it. Today, I feared what could have happened without it. Dr. Harris approached the chair and gently ran a hand along the armrest, inspecting it the way a mechanic inspects a damaged vehicle after a crash. "This chair isn't just support," he said, his voice firm. "It's protection, stability, safety." He turned, his gaze landing squarely on Liam. And pushing it like that wasn't a joke. It was dangerous. Liam's face flushed with shame. He stared at the grass, unable to meet the doctor's eyes. "I didn't think—" "That's exactly the problem," Dr. Harris interrupted. "You didn't think she could have fractured her hip or her spine. Her muscles can't brace impact like yours." My breath caught, a shiver running through me. I hadn't realized how close I had come to something far worse than humiliation. Mom stepped beside the doctor, placing a protective hand on the back of the chair. "This chair has been keeping her safe," she said softly, almost as if speaking to herself. "All this time, and I never really understood." For the first time, the family truly looked at the chair, not as a symbol of weakness or drama, but as a silent witness to every moment I had struggled through alone. Aunt Clara knelt beside it, brushing her fingers over the wheel. "We treated it like an inconvenience," she whispered, "like it was part of some act." Cousins who earlier snickered now stood stiffly, their expressions heavy with regret. Dr. Harris crouched in front of me, his eyes gentle. "Your condition means your legs can collapse even without a push. The wrong fall could cause long-term damage. This chair prevents that." I nodded slowly, the truth settling deeper than before. The chair wasn't the enemy. The ignorance surrounding it was. He stood again, turning fully toward Liam. "Do you understand now?" Liam's eyes glistened. When he finally lifted his gaze, it was filled not with defensiveness, but with raw desperation. "I do," he whispered. "I swear I do. I didn't realize how fragile, how serious." His voice broke. "I should have protected her, not hurt her." The chair remained between us, small, ordinary, and yet suddenly monumental. It wasn't just a mobility aid. It wasn't a prop for sympathy. It was the line between safety and danger. And today, that line had nearly been crossed in the worst possible way. Just as the tension in the yard seemed to settle, just as the guilt, apologies, and heavy truths began to sink into everyone's hearts, a strange wave of dizziness washed over me. It came fast, sharp, and unexpected, like someone had pulled the world out from under me. My fingers curled around the armrests of my chair as a cold sweat formed across my forehead. "Are you okay?" my mother asked immediately, noticing the change in my breathing. I tried to answer, but the words tangled in my throat. My chest tightened, and a sudden tremor ran down my legs, stronger than anything I had felt that day. Panic fluttered through me as a familiar weakness spread, heavier than usual. It felt like my body was shutting down piece by piece. Dr. Harris turned sharply, instincts kicking in. "What's happening?" he asked, kneeling in front of me again. His eyes scanned my face, then my trembling hands. "Talk to me. What do you feel?" "Dizzy," I managed. "And my legs, they're numb, worse than usual." Mom's breath hitched. "Is this because of the fall? Oh my God, is she hurt?" The doctor frowned deeply, pressing 2 fingers gently against my pulse. It was racing, far faster than normal. "Her heart rate is elevated. She's in distress." The family, already shaken from the earlier confrontation, quickly formed a semicircle around us. Fear replaced guilt as everyone watched the color drain from my face. Dr. Harris turned to Liam, his voice urgent now. "Did she hit anything when she fell? The ground, a rock, anything?" Liam shook his head rapidly, panic rising in his voice. I don't know. She fell on the grass. I didn't think there was anything." His words cut off as guilt stabbed through him again. A sudden spike of pain shot through my lower back, causing me to wince and clutch the side of my chair. "It hurts," I gasped. "Something's wrong." The doctor's face hardened with immediate concern. "We need to get her inside. Now." He and my mother moved in sync, one supporting my shoulders, the other steadying my legs, while Liam rushed forward, hands trembling as he helped guide the chair. For the first time, he handled it with care, with fear, with a shaking reverence that hadn't existed earlier. As they wheeled me toward the house, my vision wavered at the edges. The world blurred, sounds merging into a distant hum. I could feel my body growing weaker, my senses slipping like sand through my fingers. Dr. Harris kept his voice calm. "Stay with us. You're going to be all right. Just focus on breathing." But deep inside, I knew something had shifted. Something serious, something urgent, something that could no longer be ignored. The ambulance's back doors swung open the second we arrived at the hospital, and the paramedics rushed me inside as if every second mattered. Fluorescent lights blurred overhead while the stretcher glided down the hallway. My chest tightened with fear, my breath coming in quick, uneven gasps. I tried to focus on something, anything, but everything around me dissolved into a whirl of white coats and hurried footsteps. Dr. Harris walked beside the stretcher, his voice steady but urgent as he spoke to the ER team. She experienced sudden numbness, dizziness, and weakness after a fall. Neuromuscular condition, high risk for secondary complications. He listed my symptoms with the precision of someone who had memorized every detail of my medical history. My mother clutched my hand tightly, tears streaking down her face. "We're right here," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "You're not alone, not anymore." Liam followed a few steps behind, pale and silent. His eyes never left me, fear carving deep lines into his expression. He had been terrified earlier at the reunion, but here, surrounded by machines and doctors, his fear transformed into something heavier, something real. When they reached the examination room, the paramedics transferred me carefully onto the hospital bed. Cold sensors pressed against my skin as nurses attached monitors to my arms, chest, and temples. Machines beeped rapidly, tracking my heart rate, blood pressure, and oxygen levels. A doctor approached, scanning my chart. "We need to run immediate imaging," she said. "Possibility of muscle trauma or nerve aggravation from the fall." Liam flinched as if the words physically struck him. They slid me into a CT scanner, the enclosed space amplifying the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I closed my eyes, focusing on the rhythmic hum of the machine. My body felt heavy, unresponsive, as if the fall had unlocked a weakness I could no longer hide. When the scan was over, they returned me to the room where Mom and Liam waited anxiously. Dr. Harris stood near the foot of the bed, arms crossed, gaze fixed on the monitor. He looked calm, but I recognized the tightness in his jaw. He was worried. Minutes felt like hours before the imaging doctor entered with the results. She set the scans on the light board and pointed. "There's inflammation along her spinal column. The fall aggravated her lower nerves. She needs treatment immediately." My mother let out a shaky breath, relief and fear colliding in her eyes. Liam pressed his palms to his forehead, his guilt nearly suffocating him. "We can manage this," Dr. Harris assured them, "but she needs rest, medication, and careful monitoring for the next few days." The nurse started an IV, the cool sensation spreading through my arm. My eyelids grew heavy, the exhaustion pulling me down like a tide after a storm. Before sleep claimed me, I heard Liam's voice tremble beside me. "This is my fault," he whispered, and for the first time he was right. I woke to the soft, rhythmic beeping of machines and the muted glow of the hospital room's evening lights. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic, and for a moment I couldn't remember how I'd gotten there. Then the pain in my lower back reminded me. The fall, the collapse, the chaos. I shifted slightly, wincing. A gentle voice immediately spoke beside me. "Hey, you're awake." Liam sat in a chair next to my bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had turned white. His eyes were red, not the angry red I'd seen earlier, but the exhausted, broken red of someone who had cried more than he'd ever admit. "How long have you been here?" I whispered. "All day," he said quietly. "I didn't want to leave you." There was a rawness in his voice I had never heard before. Not even when we were kids, not even when life knocked him down. This wasn't pride, this wasn't habit, this was guilt carved into every syllable. He swallowed hard, lifting his gaze to mine. "I need to say something, and I need you to let me finish." I nodded, unsure if I was ready for whatever would come next. Liam took a shaky breath. "I was wrong. Completely, horribly wrong." His voice cracked. "I thought you were exaggerating or looking for attention. I convinced myself that if you really needed help, you'd look sick or act sick or something stupid like that." He shook his head. "I didn't understand, because I didn't try to understand." Tears welled in my eyes. He leaned closer, voice trembling. "When you fell today, when I pushed you, I thought it was just another one of our stupid sibling fights. I didn't think it could actually hurt you like this." His throat tightened. "Watching you in that ambulance, seeing you so weak. I've never been that scared in my life." He wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed by the tears. "I'm sorry, not just for today. For every time I doubted you, for every time I made you feel small or dramatic or invisible, you didn't deserve any of it." My breath faltered. His apology wasn't rushed. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't forced. It was real. He reached for my hand but hesitated, waiting for permission. Slowly, I extended my fingers toward him. His grip tightened instantly, as if afraid I might disappear. "I'm going to do better," he whispered. "You're my sister, my responsibility, and I swear I'll protect you now, not hurt you." For the first time in a long time, the walls between us cracked. Not from anger, but from healing. And in that fragile moment, something shifted, something long overdue. We began to find our way back to each other. The days that followed passed in a quiet rhythm of hospital checkups, slow recovery, and long conversations that felt like stitching together pieces of a torn family quilt. My mother rarely left my side, bringing warm blankets and soft apologies. My aunts and uncles visited with hesitant smiles, unsure how to act around me now that they understood the truth. Even my cousins, who had laughed without thinking, showed up with flowers and awkward, genuine remorse. But the person who visited the most was Liam. He came every morning before work and every night afterward. Sometimes he talked, sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he asked questions about my illness, trying to understand what he had ignored for so long. Other times, he simply sat beside me in silence, as if making up for every second he had failed to see me. On the morning I was discharged, Dr. Harris walked into the room with a warm, encouraging smile. "You're stronger than you think," he said, "and you're not alone anymore." He glanced meaningfully at my family before adding, "That matters." As they helped me into my wheelchair, I looked at the people around me, not with bitterness, but with a fragile, hopeful acceptance. They were learning. They were trying. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Outside the hospital, the sun bathed everything in gold. Liam adjusted the footrests on my chair with careful hands, no longer rushing, no longer irritated, no longer blind to what I faced every day. "I mean it," he said softly as he wheeled me forward. "I'm here now, whatever you need." I believed him, not because he said it, but because he showed it. And that's when I realized something important. People don't always understand pain they can't see, but ignorance can change, hearts can change, families can change, and sometimes the worst moments become the beginning of something better. Later that evening, when I finally made it home, I took a deep breath and opened my phone to share a message I had kept buried for too long. A message meant not only for my family, but for anyone who had ever been dismissed, doubted, or told their pain was imaginary. And if you're listening now, this message is for you too. Invisible illness is real, struggle is real, your pain is real, and you never need to apologize for it. If you've ever been pushed down, literally or emotionally, remember this. Your worth doesn't depend on who believes you. Your strength isn't measured by your legs, your body, or your limitations. Your voice matters, and someone, somewhere, will understand. Thank you for staying with me through this journey, through every painful moment and every step toward healing. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach more people who need them. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been misunderstood by someone you loved? Because here, your story matters too.